Welcome to the Leadership and Love podcast. We will cover leadership, mindset, personal development, and sales and marketing. You will experience thought-provoking conversations with both nationally and internationally recognized leaders. Our goal is to inspire you and deliver actionable items that you can implement that are going to help you accelerate your growth. Get ready to discover the magic and the power when you lead with love. I'm very, very excited, actually almost unbelievably, uncontrollably excited with my dear friend and lifelong friend, Shawn Wiesner, who's actually in Canada. So Shawn, thank you very much for being here today. And could you start with telling us now what Shawn lives in two places in the sense of he's in the corporate environment right now, working there, and he's also an ordained minister and working with the metaphysical and energetic fields on that end of it, the spirituality side. So Shawn, if you could tell our listeners what you do in the corporate world and then what you do in the spiritual world.
Perfect. Well, thanks for having me. First off, Louie, it's absolute pleasure to be bouncing energy in the same kind of the same field as you, and I'm honored to be here, and I'm honored to play along with this amazing opportunity. And for me, where I am in the corporate world, my title is basically learning and organizational development manager, which in short is just creating impact, creating safety, creating a culture where people feel like they can speak and that they can be inspired on a daily basis. So I've taken it from a different perspective in what I do in that field by, offering guidance, because where I am in the business that I am in right now, it's a lot of younger people, a lot of, the younger generation that sometimes we brush off. So, part of what I do is being able to give them some opportunities and introduce them to new things and new people and new opportunities, whether it be budgets, whether it be, because you get a lot of people as well that don't have parental guidance. So a lot of that is, sometimes I become their father, or, and then from the soft side, I could say it could be their mother too. I play the love game. In the corporate field, we think that it's not okay to use the word love. I love the people I work with. I love doing what I do to inspire them to feel what they want to feel and create some safety. And for me, it's not about them being fearful of my discipline. It's about fearful of letting me down. So in the corporate world, that's kind of where I sit.
Can you repeat that again? Because that's really truly a golden nugget, Shawn.
For me, in terms of giving them the opportunity to not be fearful of my discipline, but being fearful of letting me down. And that's how I want to be able to create it and let them feel safe so that they can come and communicate with me for anything and everything. Part of me in the corporate world is we say, well, you should leave your crap at home. I say sometimes you have no choice. And if we are, as leaders, are aware of it and are open to it, it gives us opportunity to be able to say, so what's going on at home? And being okay with it. Yes, of course, we can't sit into the whole coaching and consulting world for hours and hours, but it's all there needs to happen is just that simple one little question of caring to say, hey, what's going on? I'm here to support you. What can we do to help you? And that's always been my role.
Yeah, and I love that. I actually had a manager that was wanting to discipline one of my employees, and I came into the conversation and I asked her to back up a second, and I asked the employee, I said, hey, what's going on at home? Because this was an employee who we didn't have problems with. And I came to find out that he was distracted because his mom was living in a trailer park, and the trailer park was closing for the summer, and she didn't have any place to live. And so what I did was I called a realtor friend of mine, and I had a place for his mom to live within a week. And so I think you're right. I think you hit on something that, we need to be involved enough to know their personal life. I'd like to ask you, how do you kind of balance that line in today's world of politically correct, of using and being love without crossing the line of being too much? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Where somebody's going to go to HR and say, hey, this guy, Shawn, is this love thing's too much for me.
Well, I think the funny part about that is we're always going to get accused of, and I don't say accused of, but sitting into that perspective of, and I like being called weird, just so you know. I think being weird is a cool place to be because it's out of the ordinary, and
Right.
it's being able to step into the boundaries sometimes that you might not think are there. And I think from a perspective of love, um, there's a lot worse things that could be said in terms of what might end up at HR. And yes, we look at it and say, is that too woohoo? And the really neat part about what's going on in the world right now is science and woohoo are kind of becoming really good friends because science is recognizing that consciousness is becoming so an ingrained part of development and growth and awareness for us. So the woohoo is kind of mixing in with it, which I'm so excited about because I've always been told that I'm sometimes too woohoo, but I say that woohoo is the swear on here, but so I'll use crap. So woohoo is the crap that works. Um, and from that place of being open and honest and truthful, to me we've given some of that name of woohoo, which realistically is just caring. It's about culture creating. It's about when you have the opportunity to get somewhere from a perspective of me saying that I love my people, and somebody might go and say, well, that's a little bit over the top. Yet the department that I run presently, if you were to look at it, and this is factual because I could tell you whatever I want, but this is factual that from my department, I am the only department that has people that have enhanced their careers within this corporate entity, meaning that they come from my area now. Some of them are managers, some of them are running teams, some of them are in charge of inventory. There's a person in every department in this organization that have come from my department based on the fact that I gave them the opportunity to feel safe and feel loved. So, your topic on leadership or love and leadership, it's hand in hand, Louie, and it's incredible how, if we're allowed to hate, it's a heck of a lot easier to seem to go that way. Why not love? So there's I use the word all the time, and I really don't have a problem with it. And people will authentically know that, that the word seems to be scary, but I say it all the time. They just know I care for them. If it's a process that needs to be enhanced upon, they know I care enough and love them that I want to make sure that if it's a safety piece, that they're going home at the end of every day because Shawn cares for them and Shawn loves them.
And I can tell you, I love your heart and I love your transparency. And I hope that the people listening to this really catch on to what you just said, because I think I love the word authentic, that you used authentic. And when you come from that place of just being real and true, it resonates with people. It lands, right? So I love that you've got a proven record and proven results. So I'd like you to share, what are the things that you do on a regular basis that have you've found time and time again work to grow leaders? Because I really believe that's, all of us are responsible to grow leaders. What do you do to grow leaders?
So that's a great question. And one thing that I've put a lot of pride into is, and I've created something that I call, and this is me, and it's called the 4 C's. So four C's is in C is in Charlie. And what that is for me, it's just that the first C out of everything to help with creating these leaders within the organization is having a commitment. So, until one is committed, there's hesitancy, a chance to draw back, always ineffectiveness. So when I'm committed, I'm committed. And it's funny, even when you say it, it sends tingles down my spine because it just opens up that head heart chakra to say that I am in it, and I'm in it fully, both feet in the pool, not just one hanging on the side. So that's my first one. And then the second one is creativity. So within creativity comes a whole different, so I could go on and on about my 4 C's because I do really love them, and they are part of what I say has been success in my leadership piece. Creativity is about a vision, and the only way we can truly have a vision is if we are present. When we are present, creativity is allowed. When we're thinking about the past or thinking about the future, our minds are too filled with crap. When I take a leader and I say, you know what, let's just get incredibly present, because in our presence, some of the things that will come from how we want to be creative, what we want to do for efficiencies within the organization that we have, how we want to come up with some, lean processes or training other leaders. Let's get creative together. Now, which branches right into the collaboration piece. So now him and I, or her and I, might have some great, fantastic ideas. And we might think we've got the best of the best. It's all about having the willingness to bring in some other team members and going, what do you think? So it's having the awareness from getting feedback from others. So self-awareness is an important piece, but getting feedback from others and collaborating with others, because they'll come up with something you never thought of. And it'll just be, wow, it's just one of those things that you went, hey, that's what we needed to do. So that becomes really important. And then for me, the fourth C is communication. And sometimes communication is saying nothing. Sometimes communication is sitting back and, listening with the perspective of understanding rather than responding. Listening from a piece of respect that allows others to eat first and me to eat last. And I think that has been a valuable lesson for me in terms of how that communication piece really works and how powerful it is for us, And even in with all of this stuff, there's one exercise that I'll do in a room when we talk about. I'll just step back once into the collaborative side of it, and I call it brainstorming for brilliance. And what we'll do is we'll get in the room, get on a whiteboard. I'll go up to the board and I'll say, here's how things are going to work. This is how we're going to plan it, and we're just going to spit ideas out. And the importance of brainstorming for brilliance is just sitting there and listening and writing down and not making a comment, not making an eye gesture, not making a wink. Because if Johnny's says something that's absolutely stupid in the first two or three things, and I would make the comment like, really? I've shut down the creative side of it. So this whole brainstorm to brilliance has a component to my 4 C's. So if I just keep saying, tell me more, Johnny, tell me more, Johnny, sometimes the best answer will come from his 10th, not his first or second. Yet if I judge his first, second, third, fourth, and he shuts down, I lose the creative side. I've no longer communicated from the perspective of getting the leader that I want and the ideas that I have. I've allowed him or her to be able to feel safe in that environment, to be able to offer something that's contributing to the betterment of our entire organization. And all of a sudden, I've got somebody that is a dedicated, committed, 100% loving leader that wants to do the exact same thing that we just went through.
So, amen, brother. And that goes back to what now they don't want to disappoint you, right? Now they
Right.
don't want to let you down because they've come up with the idea. I want to share just a quick story. I had in one of my companies, the body shop, we had a challenge in the production department, all guys, right? And we had a couple women working in the office. And so we had this challenge that we need to solve. I put everybody together, everybody, whole company. I put them in a room, and it's not surprising to me that you and I are in the places we are in our lives, in our careers, and we've never talked about this before, but we've done such similar things to lead. And my point to this is that the best solution to our challenge in production came from a woman who doesn't fix cars, because she was thinking completely differently, right? She saw it completely differently than everybody that held a wrench in their hand, including me. And so you're right. And I just recently read that I think it's Simon Sinek said it. And you've probably heard it someplace else as well, that, as a leader, you should eat last. And I love that you've translated that to, you should also talk last. You should be the last one to open your mouth. Let everybody else have their say. So the next thing that leads me to is, explain to the audience, if you would please, how is it for you to go back and forth from like your spiritual work, being a minister and a counselor, a guidance person, a mentor in the corporate world? Do you see any difference in that? And if there isn't, how does it translate to you to just so easily go back and forth?
See, and that's fun, because when I show up fully. So I bring everything that I've had, the experience, let's call it ancestral wisdom, from a perspective of how I've been guided, how I've been mentored. And, you and I have had some incredible mentors, and, one in particular that we can talk about is Jack Canfield and the Success Principles. Part of his work and part of my work is to show up fully, is to express what it is that we've learned, to stick to what it is in terms of how we coach and how we live. And integrity is a verb, or when we look at it, but it's doing things that you would do regardless of who was watching. And I think for me, bringing the spiritual part into my corporate world is an essential piece. And it's really interesting, because if it's spiritual to spiritual, so if I'm talking as, and I'll use the title because we both have it. So if I was to go as Reverend Shawn, you and I would have a more enlightened spiritual conversation based on the words that we understand. Whereas if I take my spirituality into the corporate world, it's just changing the words a little bit. It's the exact same outcome. It's just changing up. It's just changing up how I said it so that it's better understood. I'm going to do a shoot out for a Canadian. His name's Robin Sharma. And one of his first books was A Monk Who Sold His Ferrari. And he will always use his high words, and then he'll say, in other words, blah, 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 so that he offers an opportunity, which I like to do too. So I'm just using this as an example, so that you and I could have a specific conversation and use specific words and then translate it differently so that somebody else hears it differently. So it's being aware enough to know that, it's specific to your audience. And being aware enough to know that you translate it from a perspective of understanding. And that's part of my 4 C's, again, is back into the communication pieces, and if I get biblical and spiritual, prayer of St. Francis, seek first to understand, then to be understood. So to answer your question, I love playing tennis with the corporate spiritual world. And what I mean by tennis is it becomes a service. So with tennis, we're serving it back and forth. So I love baseball too, but that's 3 strikes and you're out.
That's so beautiful, because it's truly who you are, right? Everywhere and every time we've crossed paths, that's how you show up in service. I think you're absolutely right. The world knows when we show up as somebody we're not, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so if we show up in the corporate environment trying to be somebody we're not, you're going to be found out pretty quick. And the same thing on wherever else you go in your life, right? Whether that's in your relationships or your contribution and legacy, your spiritual work. If you're being somebody different or incongruent, then the world's going to find you out pretty quick. And I think one of the things that I like to tell young leaders is that it's okay to say, I don't know, right? Don't make up some stuff because you want to be the expert now, because that integrity that you mentioned and that credibility is going to be huge, because when you say, I don't know, then people can trust you to not BS them. And that's when you start playing that role of trying to be somebody that you're not.
Mm-hmm.
So what's one of the things that you use as a tool when you've got a young leader that you're trying to mentor, and they've got challenges and they're feeling overwhelmed, or like they can't accomplish it, or they're not good enough?
Mm-hmm. I think one thing in today's world for me is, I call it, I really find this to be the most effective piece, and that is managed by walking around. So you cannot be a leader when you're sitting and sitting in your office. You cannot be a leader if you're just watching from above. And I teach everybody within the organization, leadership is a title. You don't need to have that role to be a leader. You don't need to be in that position to be a leader. So everybody has the ability to be able to take upon some of these leadership abilities. So part of what I'll do to create that, though, is you obviously give them some confidence to do so. And one of the best confidence building things that I've learned is how to deal with conflict resolution. And because in the corporate world, in the retail world especially, my heart goes out to the cashiers. My heart goes out to the people in the service industry. It really does. And, people use this word of saying, we need better, I deserve better customer service. You know what I say? You need to be a better customer. Realize that these people are doing the best they can with the skills, knowledge, and awareness they have at the time. So my job is to make sure they feel confident, protected, and supported. If somebody's going to crap on somebody that I'm looking at, oh boy, look, I'm a hail the underdog guy, Louie. I'm the protector,
Right.
Now I don't come in with bulls a-blazing, but they know I'm there to support them and protect them. And I think, part of what helps develop a leader is knowing that they have a supporter. And, I truly believe everything that filters down in terms of creating this is having somebody that'll support you. So right from the very top, if the owner of the business supports the implementer feels comfortable and confident to be able to do what he or she said they were going to do. So it's finding your supportive role, and I am definitely the guy that's going to be there from the protective piece, so that they feel comfortable within this conflict resolution. Now, if they deserved it, I'll stand back a little bit, monitor it, and then coach it as it goes through. So, but I'll do it in the moment if there's conflict. Okay. Rather than taking two different sides of the story. So I have a bit of a background too. So I used to work in the prison system for 16 years. I worked in a maximum security prison, and learning about conflict resolution and how to love and not judge people, it's one of the best places to learn it, and one of the quickest ways not to if you choose to go the other way. Anyway, that's a whole different story. So managing conflict in the moment says, bring the two people that are having the issue together. Bringing the two together, now all of a sudden you have the stories in front of you. And it's absolutely amazing when you start asking the questions when the two of them are together for facts, how that changes and how it diffuses. But if I separate them, they're still both upset. I bring them together by being there as their protector and a support and a guide and a coach. It's incredible how, so and now all of a sudden they both feel supported, because I'll say, I will come in and say, I'm not picking sides. Our goal here is to make sure that we end this where there is and here's where we come in with Shawn's woohoo. I want to make sure by the end of this, there's some love and respect in this conversation that's going on right now, where there isn't any in this present moment. So again, to answer your question, part of that is being able to be very well versed in the coaching world, which you and I both are, and a great understanding, and coming from an empathetic approach rather than a sympathetic approach. Because my piece to developing a leader is, rather than jumping in the hole with them, to me, which reflects sympathy, versus putting my hand out and saying, my hand's here for you, reach out and grab it. I will do whatever I can to help you out of that hole. Empathetic.
And actually, I think that I think you need to get to 6 C's, not 4. You need to add. I'm serious.
Okay.
You need to add confidence and conflict resolution, and you need to write your book, brother. The 6 C's of Leadership by Shawn Wiesner.
See how all of a sudden. So here's a perfect example of the creativity that comes when you put two people in the same room that have very similar ideas for creating a difference in the world. So say that. What's my title again? 6.
Yeah, actually,
6
I've got
C's of
7.
leadership.
Actually,
Okay.
7, because you use the word coaching. And every good leader should be a good coach.
Yeah.
But you used confidence, and we both know some things to help people build their self-confidence. And I think as a leader, you have to have conflict resolution. And you've got a book dying to be written. Sincerely, The 7 C's of Leadership by Shawn Wiesner.
And I like 7's my favorite number, so there we go.
Yeah.
I think there's the perspective of what there is out there to make a difference. So I'm just going to honor you for a moment here, based on the idea of what it is that is required in the world of uncertainty right now, is giving people hope. And you have always been that individual, regardless of what conversation we have, how we have it. You make me laugh. You make me feel loved. You have that essence of change. And I'm going to hats off to Louie Sharp right now from the podcast piece, that these are pieces that are going to help in that uncertainty. These are the places where we'll be able to speak our truths, feel safe, feel inspired, and take something of the nuggets that you'll be sharing on you. And you talk about self-respect and self-confidence. One of the most important things we can do as leaders and lovers, and I call us love leakers, is having self-love. It's because you cannot give away what you don't have. And to have that confidence that we're looking for in leadership, it's about being able to look in the mirror and look beyond what the exterior is, and be able to see deep inside of what you are, and look for that inner teacher and that inner love that is going to expand throughout the world. And it's a simple piece. Every single one of us are standing in front of the mirror in the morning. I'm assuming we are. You're either brushing your teeth, or you're shaving, or you're doing something in front of that mirror first thing in the morning. What a beautiful opportunity to look yourself in the eyes and say, you know what? I love you. It's the same perspective. I'll go back to what you don't have, you can't give away. If you want to be able to give some money to somebody that you don't have, well, you need to figure out a way to get it. So there's things you can do. So if I look at because we look at a tangible versus the woohoo. So here's where I talk about science and woohoo. Money will give you an opportunity to give it away, to give somebody a smile. No different than it is look in the mirror and tell you that you love yourself. And there's exercises that, the mirror exercise. You and I went through that whole thing, and I know that you still do it today without your clothes on.
Right.
And everybody might laugh at that, but there's an important piece to be able to say, some people say, yeah, but my feet are ugly. Well, your feet carry you a lot of distance, a lot of miles. They've taken you to places that, you're very appreciative of. You can have gratitude for those places. So, without going way out into left field, the self-confidence is going to become an important piece for self-love. And there's many ways and tools that you can do that. And I would strongly encourage anybody that's looking to do that. There's tons of different ways and simplistic ways. Don't make it difficult, make it easy.
Yeah. And so first off, I want to say thank you very much for your kind and thoughtful words. They touch my heart. They really do. And I think that one of the things I'd like listeners to know is that what we're doing with this podcast is creating together. And I've come to understand that nothing great was ever built by somebody in a vacuum all by themselves. Right? I don't care who you are. There's somebody out there that's going to help you, support you, and often in ways that you never thought possible, or in something that you didn't even know you were aware of that you needed help with. And so man, you've just been dropping golden nuggets for this entire conversation. And I also think that it was very powerful, because you're right. I say the same thing to people, and it's probably not a coincidence, but you can't give away what you don't have. And until you have it. And then that self-respect, you touched on that, and that's the same thing. If I don't respect myself, then how am I going to respect that cashier that's checking out my groceries, right? And then it starts to be really easy to be crappy to everybody, because you're crappy to yourself. And once you heal this relationship between you and you, then life gets a whole lot easier, but it's also filled with a whole lot more love. Is there anything you'd like to add before we call it a day?
I think there was one thing that I read before I came, and it's based on, they say it's based on an African proverb, but it says, go fast, go alone, go far, go together. And I think we have an opportunity, going forward. It's, this word community is popping up quite frequently again. And from a place of being able to be collaborative and creative, there could be another C in that book. And that is being able to talk about community and the unification and the spirituality that comes from being in a community. And I'm just so proud and pleasured and loving that you're part of my community.
Well, thank you. And I think you've touched on something. I said, and this is being recorded shortly after the recent presidential election. But one of the things I shared with people during that craziness was, I don't care whether you're hating Harris or Trump or Brussels sprouts or broccoli. If you're
Mhm.
hating, you're peeing in our pool, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
The collective, Einstein proved it's all energy. And so if you're
Mhm.
broadcasting something negative, you're broadcasting it into the entire universe, the entire pool that we're all swimming in. And here's what most people don't understand. And I know you know this, but if I'm being grouchy and hateful and mean and spiteful and all those things, who am I hurting the most? Me,
Yeah.
right? Me. And then it becomes perpetual. I had one last thought.
Hmm.
When you think about leaders and their future, is there anything that you tell them to get them to think bigger or think, to your point, about going further? Because you mentioned that, in that African proverb, and I love that because in community you can go a long way for a long time, right? It gives you the ability and the energetic place to kind of recharge but keep going with other people. What do you do to help leaders see that bigger picture and to dream bigger?
And that's a beautiful question because part of it is don't recreate the wheel. There's thousands and thousands of different ideas and opportunities and mentors and coaches. And I'm not saying I'm the one or you're the one or he's the one or she's the one, but there's so many different people that I would say become attached to, from that ancestral wisdom I was talking about earlier. If you want to know more, learn more, and the resources are there. Find a mentor. There's so many people like you and I that if a young person came up to us and said, could you please teach me what you know, we'd be honored. And yet, so that comes down to the confidence to be able to ask. So, I'm going to throw a pitch in for Jack Canfield again. One of his success principles is ask, 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 ask. And I will throw it out there and say, if you want to become a really good leader, become a really good ask hole. And that is a perspective of being able to feel, because if you're willing to do it, you'd be surprised how things will show up. So that would be a number one thing that I would say. Ask for a mentor, ask for resources, ask for different things. And like I said, there's so many resources out there that I'm always willing to say, hey, have you looked at this person? Have you seen this person? Have you talked to that person? Have you looked at this one? So don't recreate the wheel. I mean, Marcus Aurelius wrote a great book called Meditations. It's thousands of years old. There's some great leadership quotes and qualities in there. And yet the corporate world still is not even looking at that book that's 1,000 years old. So like I said, just become a really good asker and be confident to be able to do that. And you and I both know that in the leadership world, that no is just an opportunity to ask another question. So, I'll leave it with that in terms of what it is, to keep it simple. I would hope that the younger generation that want to become leaders just ask the right questions and end up in the lap of a perfect mentor and a perfect coach, a perfect guide, and a lot of opportunity for them to help and grow and develop within their careers and within their lives.
That's beautiful. I appreciate that, Shawn. And I think that you're right. I recently, a good friend of mine, her daughter came to me and said, I know you've shared some books with my mom. Would you mentor me? And I told her, this is the deal. I appreciate that you want to build a better life. I'll mentor you for as long as you take action,
Mm-hmm.
right? And for free. As long as you're going to take some action on what I'm going to give you, I guarantee you can get results. But I'm not gonna spend my time mentoring you if you're not going to do the work.
Great point. And I mean, that's where we go back to the commitment piece.
Right.
If you're wanting to know and you're coachable and you're willing to listen and you're willing to follow through, I will be there again, I will be there 100% support. So I'm on the same boat as you.
So Shawn, again, thank you very much, brother. This
Oh,
was
my
just
pleasure.
unbelievable, unbelievable. If people would like to reach out to you for guidance, mentorship, your wisdom, how could people get a hold of you?
So interestingly enough, I'm just in the process of keeping myself accountable. I'm developing this website that'll be up and ready, but right now it's not. So right now I'm just going by my own email, which I've had for years, and I think you'll love and appreciate the idea that it's changing lives at telus.net. So that's CHANGINGLIVES NGLIDES at T as in Tellus, ELUS.net. And I'm open for anything, conversations, coaching, mentoring, whatever it is. I'm here for that perspective of changing one life at a time, and you know, making sure that we're always there to create a difference. So thank you so much for having me.
Quite welcome. And what I'm going to do for you, those of you that are listening, I'll put your contact information in the notes of the podcast as well, so that they can pick it up. Yeah, they can pick it up from there. So thanks again, Shawn.
Sounds good, Louie. I appreciate you too. Love you, brother.
Love you too.
Thanks again for joining us and listening to this episode of Leadership and Love. I would like to challenge you to ask yourself, what's one thing that you heard today that you can implement immediately to improve your leadership and accelerate your growth? If you've gotten value out of this episode or learned something that you can implement today, we'd ask that you please share it with those that you care about. Our goal is to create more leaders who are leading with love.